Hello and welcome back to Random Vids. So today, like the other two videos, we're going to be doing more SpongeBob. I hope you're all enjoying these videos because they're pretty fun to make. I think doing top 10 is a little easier and a little more fun to do than the rankings, at least on this channel, just because, it just goes on and on. I don't mind ranking the Dalmatians, that was fun, but ranking SpongeBob I think would just go on forever because, like I said before, there are 12 freaking seasons with 13 literally in making. There's episodes already released on 13. No DVD yet, but there is definitely episodes from season 13. Anyway, so last time we talked about what people say is the best SpongeBob seasons of all time. What was the golden era of SpongeBob? What made SpongeBob SpongeBob? Seasons 1, 2, and 3 are what many people can consider the best seasons out of any season in SpongeBob. It was classic, it was original, and it was entertaining. After season 3, we got the first SpongeBob movie, which a lot of people can say was the best SpongeBob movie. I have not seen that movie yet, but I really do want to see that movie. I've only seen the middle ones, the Sponge Out of Water, and that one was pretty good. Anyway, after the movie, the show was originally going to end, but apparently it didn't end. So we ended up getting like 9 more seasons plus a 10th one. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Anyway, so season 4 came, and a lot of people were really skeptical of how this season would become. And like the last time where I talked about 3 seasons, I'm going to be doing 3 seasons again. This one will be season 4, 5, and 6. I feel like a lot of people could say 4 was a pretty good season, 5 was definitely where it started getting pretty bad, and 6 is what many people could say was the, absolute worst SpongeBob season of all time. But here's the thing. Is it my least favorite season? Do I hate 5 and 4 more? Do I hate a later season more? I don't know. But anyway, let's count the top 10 worst SpongeBob episodes from SpongeBob seasons 4, 5, and 6. So, I've said this in the other two videos, but I have a second channel where I've actually ranked all SpongeBob seasons, including season 12 now. So, technically I did already rank all SpongeBob episodes, and I even ranked the seasons to finish it up. So, I know, I keep saying I'm going to link it down in the description. You know what, though? Instead of linking it down in the description, I'm probably just going to end up doing a community post. And I'll link my channel into the community post instead. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with the countdown. And number 10 would go to All That Glitters. Looks like we're starting with a Season 4 episode. Season 4 was the first season that I ended up getting on DVD, and it's a very interesting season. So anyway, SpongeBob has to serve up the infinite Monster Krabby Patty. While he tries to flip this so-called Monster Krabby Patty, his spatula breaks. So he goes on for 5 minutes crying about the spatula. So then for some reason it ends up going to the hospital, the spatula does, because apparently now it's like any other normal fish. If they get hurt or sick, they go to the hospital. So if a fish can do it, or a SpongeBob can, then why can't the spatula? So the doctor tells him, how about you get a replacement, or at least look for a replacement. SpongeBob kind of doesn't like the idea at first, until he finds Le Spatula. At least I think that's what its name was. Yep, it was Le Spatula. Anyway, so unfortunately, Le Spatula is very, very expensive. But SpongeBob's too obsessed with it, so he tries to find all the money he can find lying around his house, and even to the point of selling his house and his clothes just for this new spatula. So we get to see SpongeBob walking around buck naked, cooking Krabby Patties. Okay then. Unfortunately though, Le Spatula is a jerk, and doesn't want to listen to SpongeBob, and ends up running away from SpongeBob, literally. So SpongeBob goes back to the hospital and see that his spatula is all better, but the spatula, I guess, is mad at SpongeBob for some reason? Oh yeah, because he got replaced. So like Grandma's Kisses, then we get to see SpongeBob throw the second biggest temper tantrum that we've ever seen. Why? So once he finally mopes his way back to the Krusty Krab, then he finds out his spatula is cooking the Krabby Patties all by all by itself, because, like I said, apparently spatulas can come to life now. And the episode ends with the both reuniting at the end, and SpongeBob is still naked. Ugh. This is a train wreck of a first episode. So back when I was talking about the season 1, 2, and 3 episodes, one thing that really, I noticed a lot was all the SpongeBob torture episodes. Yes, this one isn't as bad as, Gary Takes a Bath, but, man, this is a harsh one. Basically, SpongeBob sells all of his stuff just to get a spatula who's really rude and runs away immediately, and then gets rejected by his come-to-life spatula. The only saving grace is the ending, because at least SpongeBob reunites, but we've never seen if he's gotten his house back or not. It could still be sold for all we know. Oh yeah, but I'm sure by the next episode his house is back, because that's how SpongeBob logic works, and I guess that also explains why his spatula randomly comes to life. So I guess that means if his spatula is included as a SpongeBob character, his spatula has to be one of my least favorite characters in the show. Him and this lay spatula just ruined this episode. I don't know, in Season 5 we got another episode, To Love a Patty. That one wasn't all that good either. I just feel like this one is a lot more harsh and just annoying than that one. So yeah, a little bit of a spoiler alert. To Love a Patty is not in my top 10 least favorite list. It's definitely an honorable mention, but it's not my least favorite list. This one definitely is. Like I said, I just feel like SpongeBob gets, he just gets bullied by literally everything that comes to life in this episode, so it is no fun to watch, and it's definitely one of my least favorite episodes in Season 4. The only thing I like about this episode is when SpongeBob's crying about his spatula, and Patrick also walks up and starts crying as well. That's the only good part about this episode. Anything else, it's terrible. So let's move on to number 9, which is Rule of Dumb. Oh great, not this episode. Now we moved on to another bad episode from Season 4. Basically, apparently Patrick is royalty because of a random family tree, and his ancestors were, so I guess that means Patrick is. So of course, SpongeBob, being the stupid guy he is, says, "Hey Patrick, because you're royalty, you could have anything you want." Unfortunately, he's saying this to Patrick, the literally dumbest person in Bikini Bottom. Not only that, but this is Season 4 Patrick, and this is where we get to see the characters get really one-dimensional. Patrick ended up being not just, stupidly funny like he used to, but more just, stupidly mean. The episode starts off kind of fine, but then Patrick starts demanding stuff, like free Krabby Patties. Well, I guess Mr. Krabs might deserve it, because Mr. Krabs ain't innocent either, but then he does stuff like steal a kid's lollipop, or steal a kid's comic books. And it's to the point where even SpongeBob's like, Patrick, I don't think you should be doing that. But because Patrick was clearly told that he can have anything he wants, he says, well, I can have anything I want because I am the king. So Patrick makes SpongeBob do a bunch of stuff like build a castle for him. And heck, because why not, they end up trying to destroy Squidward's house because, you gotta love the Squidward torture episodes. I mean, why hate them? They're so interesting and funny. I mean, come on, you gotta laugh at whenever Squidward gets hurt or tortured for literally no reason at all. It's just the most funniest stuff ever, and if you like it, well guess what, there's a lot of episodes that are either focused around that or have a little bit of that in, so if you like Squidward torture, then you'll like Rule of Dumb. Okay, well it was one section, and Squidward did convince everyone that, hey, Patrick's just this big dumb guy, you shouldn't listen to him. They're like, oh, okay, and they walk away. But Squidward's house still gets wrecked, so still Squidward torture. The one thing that I did like about this episode is that SpongeBob ended up running away, finding that that's the best option. Kind of like what he did in I Am With Stupid. Instead of standing there and letting Patrick boss him around and bully him, he runs away and lets Patrick kind of be himself. Unfortunately, SpongeBob doesn't do this in all episodes. It's like you either fight him or you just run away from him. You don't stay with him and try to help him. Eventually, Patrick ends up looking in the mirror and seeing himself as this big monster, and even he is scared of even he is upset of what he's done. So Patrick runs out of his house just as the crown guy who gave him the crown in the beginning, he takes it off and says, "Here, I don't want it anymore, it's turning me into a monster," and starts bawling. But the crown man said, "Oh no, I made a mistake because I wasn't going to give it to you, I was actually going to give it to Gary." Because apparently now Patrick and Gary are related. So this is one of those episodes where it starts alright, has a terrible middle, and has a pretty good-ish finish. But overall, this episode just feels like a stupid Patrick being dumb episode. It is really obnoxious how he treats everyone in Bikini Bottom in this episode, including his best friend SpongeBob. What happened to season 1 Patrick, where he was like stupid yet funny? I just don't really have words for this episode. It's a bad episode. It's like, I don't like it. I think it's better than I'm with Stupid, but only by a little bit. I am glad that Patrick did find the error of his ways by the end of this episode, but overall, it's still a bad episode. So, it deserves a number 9 spot. Now let's move on to number 8, which is good old what's-his-name? So Mr. Krabs tells Squidward and SpongeBob that if they can get everyone's name that is in the Krusty Krab, I believe it is, then they get to win a trip. So of course Squidward's like, yes, I want to win a trip. So him and SpongeBob walk around and know everyone's name. The problem is SpongeBob already knows everyone's name, basically, and Squidward doesn't. They finally get to a strange customer that we've never seen before. So Squidward asks his name, and the grumpy guy says, "What's it to ya?" Squidward doesn't believe him, neither does anyone else watching this episode, so he tries to find other ways to find out his name. Nothing works, so by the end of the episode, Squidward ends up taking good old What's It To Ya's wallet and runs away with it, just to find his name. Unfortunately, Squidward ends up running into town, and the police start catching him as well. So then Squidward finally opens the wallet, and it says, "What's it to ya?" And of course, because the police were chasing Squidward, he ends up going to jail, because, I mean, why the heck not? Oh yeah, and then Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob ended up visiting Squidward at the end of the episode. And because, I guess, that thing that Mr. Krabs showed them, that vacation thing that Squidward's like, well, at least I still get the vacation. Apparently it's just a postcard. Like, it's not a free vacation, it's just a picture. What? Honestly, this episode just really bored me. It was just Squidward trying to find out What's It To Ya's name was because he didn't believe the guy. And What's It To Ya is a very, very unlikable character. Easily, yet again, one of the worst in the show. But I mean, maybe Mr. Krabs should have told them that it was a postcard instead of vacation, so then Squidward didn't have to wind up in jail. You know what, Mr. Krabs should be the one in jail, because he's the one who told Squidward it's a vacation, which of course will hype him up and try to figure out What's It To Ya's name actually is. It's just another bad Squidward torture episode. Trust me, we have a lot of these coming. Like, this is only the beginning. The reason why this is the best Squidward torture on this list is because, I mean, Squidward did steal the guy's wallet and run away with it, so it sort of makes sense, but it's still a really bad episode. I hate it. It's easily one of the worst in Season 5. Anyway, nothing else I really have to say about this episode. Let's move on to number 7, which is Waiting. Wow. This episode doesn't lie. It's SpongeBob waiting. Heck, he waits so long that there really isn't even a plot to this episode. Basically, SpongeBob's waiting for a toy. That's literally what he does the whole episode. He waits for a toy and he doesn't want to do anything except waiting. Heck, he doesn't even want to go to the Krusty Krab because he's starving. He'd rather just wait there for his toy to arrive. Eventually, by the end, he ends up getting the toy, and Patrick's there as well. And then Patrick pushes on his head, and what SpongeBob thinks, breaks. So SpongeBob explodes and he yells at Patrick. I guess it's honestly kind of refreshing to see. I'd rather see SpongeBob yell at Patrick than Patrick yell at SpongeBob, because we've seen that way too much in these middle seasons. And so then they start crying, they annoy Squidward, he fixes it and says, no, it's supposed to do that. And then the episode kind of ends with just them, Patrick and SpongeBob, just playing around. This episode is a whole lot of nothing. Like I said, there's just no plot to it. And I think the problem here is just SpongeBob himself. He refuses to do anything except waiting right by the mailbox. That's literally just the whole episode. It's just one of those painful episodes to watch through. It's just so filler friendly, and it is not fun to watch. Like, I understand he's waiting for a toy, which can become really, like, relatable, but they made it so obnoxiously annoying. This episode is so boring, there's just nothing else I really have to say about it. It's just such a boring filler mess of an episode. Nothing else I need to say here. Let's just move on to number 6, which is Professor Squidward. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the dreaded Season 6. Basically, Squidward watches Squilliam because he's jealous. So, when some random guys come up to Squidward and say, "Hey, are you Squilliam?" He's like, "Well, of course I am." So then Squidward becomes a teacher for a whole bunch of students, and guess who's in his class? None other than SpongeBob and Patrick, because, I don't know, because they want to annoy him, I guess? Like, there's literally no reason why SpongeBob and Patrick are here. They're just there because the writers thought it'd be funny if SpongeBob and Patrick would torture Squidward. Because, why not? I mean, like I said, you guys all want to see Squidward torture, right? And that's basically what the whole episode is about. Squidward gets annoyed, he does things like split SpongeBob and Patrick up, etc., etc. And then eventually, Squilliam plus other people come in. I think the police, come in and arrest Squidward for pretending to be Squilliam. And that only happens because, guess who? SpongeBob and Patrick. Because when they finally have the need to apologize, then they say sorry Squidward instead of sorry Squilliam. Which, of course, everyone somehow hears that, and they arrest Squidward. Then it ends. I feel like Squidward seems a little out of character in this episode. I mean, yeah, this is Season 6 where every single character is so one-dimensional that it's not even funny, but, like, geez Louise. Unlike something like the artist episode from Season 2, where Squidward actually not enjoys, but, like, teaches SpongeBob about the art, here he just wishes they would all go away. I mean, I don't blame him. But not even at SpongeBob, like the students he's even grumpy with. It's just, like I said, Squidward is just the grumpy guy. That's what Squidward's personality is, and that's what it will remain until, like, Season 9. Then it'll finally change again. But man, this episode, kind of like Waiting, was just so boring to watch. It was just Squidward being grumpy and then getting tortured because of it. And like the episode ends like good old what's its name as well, because Squidward ends up going to jail because, Squidward is the worst person in Bikini Bottom. He clearly said in Season 7, "I am the most miserable person in Bikini Bottom." Maybe Squidward was just miserable here, but that doesn't make sense because you would think he wanted to be a professor, right? Like I said, this episode just didn't work because Squidward was way too one-dimensional, plus SpongeBob and Patrick and literally everyone in Season 6. And it's just kind of like a miles worse of New Student Starfish from Season 2. Another good episode that they tried to, I guess, redo, if you want to call it that. Squidward's too grumpy, SpongeBob and Patrick are annoying as heck, all the students are just kind of there. And then the episode ends with Squidward being arrested. I guess this one doesn't have as much Squidward torture as some other episodes, but man, this one is bad. We're only at number 6, and this is bad. We still have a lot to come. The only thing I like about this episode is when SpongeBob and Patrick go like tick, 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 tick. Other than that, it's definitely deserving of the top 10 worst episodes. Nothing else I really have to say, so let's move on to number 5, which is Boating Buddies. Welcome back to Season 6, everybody. I think we're definitely going to be seeing a lot more episodes from this season. Yet again, another reclash of New Student Starfish from Season 2, but done, like, miles worse. So as usual, SpongeBob ruins Squidward's day, so then Squidward gets punished. Well, we'll talk about that later, actually. Anyway, like any normal person would do, run away from the crazy maniac. And that's what Squidward does. Runs to his car and, of course, runs into a stop sign. And, of course, there just happens to be a police officer right there. So, of course, the police officer makes Squidward go to boating school. Because, why not? Like I said on the top 10 worst seasons, 1, 2, and 3 episodes, the police officers are yet again sometimes some of the worst characters, and this episode definitely shows that. So of course, Squidward is at Mrs. Puff's boating school, and guess who he gets to sit next to? None other than SpongeBob SquarePants, the person who kind of started this whole thing. So of course, in this whole episode, we get to see Squidward get tortured, bullied, picked on, etc. Because, like I said, all the kids and everyone literally watching wants to see Squidward be the punching bag. Like, why? That just makes no sense to me. What did Squidward do? He was literally just trying to enjoy his day off from work, probably, and then SpongeBob had to come in and ruin everything. Like, these episodes are the most stupidest bullcrap ever. And of course, SpongeBob being SpongeBob tries to help Squidward, but in literally like the worst ways possible. So when Squidward gets bullied by a bully and beaten up so badly that he has to wear bandages, then SpongeBob doesn't want to help him. Then SpongeBob's like, oh, I'm sorry. But little does he know, Squidward, can't do the test because he's in bandages. So, of course, then SpongeBob doesn't want to help him, but Squidward can't pick up the pencil and even ends up rolling on the floor. And Mrs. Puff was out of character too, because then she's like, well, you just got to do it next year. What? How about maybe like when you're out of the bandages? Like I said, every character in the season was just out of character. And it was just so pointlessly stupid. All the one-dimensional stuff really is so annoying. Mrs. Puff was just the boating teacher at this point. The mean, annoying boating teacher. The big fat meanie from season 2, literally. She just seems so out of character in this one, and I don't think it even is because she's one-dimensional. She's just out of character. She doesn't let Squidward retry. She's like, you know what? You just have to wait till next year. It's one thing for SpongeBob to retry it because he always fails, but Squidward, like I said, he just got brung into all this because of SpongeBob. And it's weird because we've seen New Student Starfish and we've seen The Bully, both from seasons 2 and 3, and when SpongeBob had problems, Mrs. Puff helped him. Like when SpongeBob and Patrick were fighting, Mrs. Puff separated them. Or when there was the bully, Mrs. Puff talked to him. But apparently it's A-okay for Squidward to get bullied. But not SpongeBob, because, he's the main character. I mean, there's nothing else I really have to say. This is a terrible, terrible episode that tried to rip off of another what was a good episode, and it just doesn't work at all in the slightest. Every character is out of character, it's one-dimensional, it's boring, it's filler, and of course, Squidward torture. So, combine all that, and you get a trashy episode. Let's move on to number 4, which is Driven to Tears. Basically, it's like Rule of Dumb, but even worse. Anyway, so SpongeBob failed his driver's license again, so Patrick goes in and takes it, and of course, he ends up getting it right away. So, of course, Patrick gets a really big, cool, beautiful boat that SpongeBob, of course, is jealous of. So then Patrick always wants to drive SpongeBob around, whether if that's to work, to his house, you name it. Heck, he even ends up coming through the drive-thru, which SpongeBob is tortured to put through. So he gets to hear Patrick's obnoxious, loud horn again. Then eventually Patrick ends up going through 3 stoplights. Wait a sec. Squidward ran into a stop sign, but then the police come. Patrick goes through 3 stop signs. 3 not stop signs. Traffic lights, and the police don't come. Oh wait, the police actually is there, because SpongeBob ends up getting annoyed at Patrick because he says Patrick is rubbing his license in his face. So the two end up fighting, and SpongeBob rips his license up and throws it into the hands of the police officer. Oh, that's when the police show up, when SpongeBob does the crime. This would have worked perfectly in Boating Buddies, but not for Driven to Tears. So it almost worked where the police came and were arrest Patrick. And it almost worked until SpongeBob said, you know what, no, take me. SpongeBob. Why? You literally did not deserve any of this. But of course, because SpongeBob is, like I said, stupid, and he's one-dimensional now because it's season 4, He doesn't want his best friend going to jail. And it makes sense in the smoking peanut from season 2 because Patrick didn't do any crime and SpongeBob know he did it, and we all know he did it too, and Patrick wasn't being annoyingly obnoxious in that episode. Plus, it wasn't even jail, it was just people throwing peanuts at him. This time, it's real jail. And SpongeBob, I guess, is stupid enough to be like, you know what, let Patrick go, and I will go to jail instead. And then apparently at the end, Patrick threw the boat out because it wouldn't work, I guess. I don't remember, but it was... The ending, it just ends with SpongeBob getting out of jail in the boat, and they both reunite again. As friends, so I guess the ending is alright, but you know what? It's just a stupid episode. Like I said before, if it's not Squidward getting tortured, it's Patrick being a, stupid jerk. This episode is definitely one of those, and it's, on par with I'm Was Stupid. It's probably even worse than that episode. This one, though, is definitely one of the worst episodes in Season 4. It just makes me mad, and I hate this episode to death. So you know what? Nothing else I have to say, so let's move on to number 3, which is Good Neighbors. So this episode is what a lot of people can say is what started the Squidward torture stuff. And that's sort of true, but you know what? It started back in Season 3 with Club SpongeBob. Actually, no, it started way back in Season 1 with jellyfishing. That episode isn't terrible. I mean, it is Squidward torture, but I don't hate it as much as some people do. But man, this episode is just a whole lot of nothing. Like I said before, Season 4 was the first season I ever got on DVD, and even back as a kid, I have always thought this episode was just super boring. It's just, yet again, of nothing plot. It's just SpongeBob and Patrick ruining Squidward's day off. So in this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick want to be good neighbors to Squidward, but that doesn't work because it just ends up being more Squidward torture, which, of course, like I said, that's what we all want to see. So eventually, Squidward ends up getting a device that kicks out any threats, I guess. And of course, because SpongeBob and Patrick never really make threats, it doesn't work. And of course, Squidward had to make the threat, and then end up kicking Squidward out of his own house, because why not? So then the house, with SpongeBob and Patrick inside, ends up going around Bikini Bottom, destroying the place. You know, at least Squidward can finally relax outside of his house, away from SpongeBob and Patrick, for now. Eventually, the house comes back and topples on Squidward, because... why not? Because he couldn't have gone back to its original spot. No, it had to go on Squidward. And then some dude comes and makes Squidward, SpongeBob, and Patrick do community service for every Sunday for the rest of their lives, because why not? I think the ending is what bothered me the most. How come Squidward has to pay for doing literally nothing throughout the episode? At least in episodes like good old What's-Its-Name and Professor Squidward, I feel like Squidward sort of has a reason why he's getting in trouble, but this one, it's no reason at all whatsoever, and that's also the same problem with Boating Buddies. Squidward gets punished because of SpongeBob and Patrick. Like I said, it's the most stupidest stuff ever, and there is so many episodes like this. Why does Squidward have to? Oh, because it's its house. But wait, why didn't Patrick go to jail, but it was his car, huh? Like I said, these episodes just make zero sense to me, and Season 4 is just a meh season overall. I can easily say this is the worst episode in Season 4. There is just no other episode that is this terrible as a mess. At least, all the other ones I talked about in Season 4 had happy endings. This one isn't even happy. It's just Squidward having to pick up what SpongeBob and Patrick had to do. Like I said, it's just... I hate this one. It's definitely deserving of the top 10 worst episodes. Like I said, I don't know what the creators were thinking when they made this one, but I guess they just weren't awake. With that, let's move on to number 2. Cephalopod Lodge. Oh no. Ladies and gentlemen, we have returned to the dreaded Season 6. And would you look at that? Another episode cracks this list. And would you believe it? It's another Squidward torture episode. You know, you all love this one, right? So the episode starts off with Squidward being happy at the Krusty Krab, and SpongeBob is apparently alarmed that Squidward is happy. He can't be happy? That's right, it's Season 6, so SpongeBob's used to Squidward being one-dimensional. But in the first time ever, Squidward actually isn't one-dimensional. Well, at least in the first, 2 seconds of this episode. Anyway, so Squidward has this secret lodge that he goes to that's only for cephalopods. And, of course, SpongeBob, being the nosy neighbor he is, brings Patrick to investigate. The two end up sneaking into the lodge, which gets Squidward kicked out. Because, that's what we wanted to see, right? So SpongeBob and Patrick end up making their own club with Squidward. I guess they're trying because they were like, okay, yeah, we did mess up. So they did kind of see the error in their ways, but at the same time, when they're trying to do their own club, they just torture Squidward even more. I used to miss back in the day when Squidward actually would have, sort of fun with the games he was playing with SpongeBob and Patrick. Episodes like Dying for Pie, where he spends the whole day with SpongeBob. That was a charming, cute, awesome episode. This one is just bullcrap. Because nothing that they try to do with Squidward works, then they try to get him back into the lodge. So they end up dressing up as a sock puppet to scare everyone, and Squidward will save the day and defeat the sock puppet. But SpongeBob and Patrick come out and ruin the day yet again. Another just terrible Squidward bad-ending torture episode. It's just another Good Neighbors and Boating Buddies. If you enjoyed those two, you'll enjoy Cephalopod Lodge. There's just nothing else I have to say about this episode. It's the same stuff we've been seeing for the past 3 episodes that I talked about. It's so pointless. I've already said everything I need to say. Squidward gets tortured and yada yada yada, because that's just the new Squidward we know. He's grumpy and he gets tortured because of it. I mean, at least SpongeBob and Patrick were sort of trying to help Squidward out, and some of the games they come up with are a little inventive, like all them dressing up as chickens. But it just all boils down to another Squidward torture episode. Well, I guess that's just what Squidward is nowadays, the punching bag of Nickelodeon. It is what it is, might as well get used to it, because we're still stuck here in Season 6. Before we get to number 1, let's count down a few honorable mentions. Wig Struck, a Season 4 episode. So remember back in Season 2 when we got squirrel jokes? Well, this is basically the same thing, but instead of everyone bullying Sandy, everyone's bullying SpongeBob. Why are they bullying him, you may ask? Because he has this wig on that apparently looks ugly, which it's not that bad. But everywhere SpongeBob walks, everyone just starts bullying him. So now this is also like Grandma's Kisses. Great, 2 of the worst episodes from Season 2 are just mashed up into this episode. Heck, even Sandy laughs at him, and Sandy's the person who got bullied in squirrel jokes. Hasn't she learned her lesson? Well, I guess so, because I didn't like her in squirrel jokes. I didn't like anyone in squirrel jokes. Anyway, so finally after Sandy talking to SpongeBob, he ends up letting the wig go. But Sandy impatiently waits for him to let go of this wig. Like I said, I don't like Sandy that much either. I think she's better now than she was, in classic SpongeBob, but only barely. Not the personality-wise, but just because she doesn't have as many bad episodes. I mean, she doesn't get quite as grumpy, I guess that's the words. This one, though, she does get a little grumpy in it. Oh, and then once SpongeBob gets rid of the wig, then everyone has a wig, because why not? Heck, SpongeBob and Sandy end up going to the movies with SpongeBob's big giant hair wig on. Which kind of brings back the Something Smells episode from Season 2 where SpongeBob and Patrick go to the movies. But, I mean, it's obvious that episode is like a Goliath compared to this little ugly thing. Apparently it wasn't even SpongeBob's because it belonged to one of the fish from Ned and the Needlefish. Ned and the Needlefish are pretty interesting characters, but they've only appeared in only 2 episodes, and the other episode was a lot better than this episode. We'll probably talk about it once we get to that season. Anyway, if you like seeing everyone bully and laugh at SpongeBob, then you're gonna love Wig Struck. The Krusty Sponge. Ugh. So basically, Mr. Krabs makes literally everything in the store SpongeBob. Whether if that's the napkins, the ketchup, or heck, even the patties themselves. And of course, because this is Season 5, We end up seeing Squidward dress up as SpongeBob and get tortured in the process of it. But apparently those sponge patties are actually poison. Not poison, but like, they're not good anymore, and it turns everyone yellow. So Mr. Krabs goes to the courthouse where everyone says, yeah, Mr. Krabs needs punished, including a health inspector that we've seen in the first half of this episode. But no, Mr. Krabs doesn't go to jail. Instead, he makes Squidward dress up in the SpongeBob suit and drive the judge around in the SpongeBob train. This episode is just meh. I just think the ending is terrible because it just turns from a meh episode into a Squidward torture episode, which is never good. How come Mr. Krabs can get away with things but not Squidward? How come Patrick can get away with things but sometimes not SpongeBob? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, and that's why I hated these seasons so much. Everyone's one-dimensional as they should be. That means it's a good episode, right? Well, it's on my honorable mention, so it's almost, but it's not quite. The Splinter. This episode is well known as one of the worst episodes in not just Season 6, but one of the worst episodes of all time, and I can definitely see that. So SpongeBob gets a splinter, a nasty-looking splinter, and now, I know, I've seen nasty stuff like the nasty patty in Season 3, that wasn't even that nasty. And of course the infinite moldy patty from Season 5. That's pretty gross. I think the splinter might be even grosser, though. So SpongeBob doesn't want to tell anybody because he's afraid he's going to get not fired, but he's not going to be able to work that day. So he ends up calling Patrick, of all people. Screw the doctor, screw Sandy, like those guys won't help you. Patrick will. So a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing. Oh, we're going to see another fun Patrick being the doctor episode like we saw in Suds in Season 1. Well, no, because this is Season 6, not Season 1, Patrick's one-dimensional, and you remember his is the stupid meanie. Literally, I think SpongeBob should just draw a picture of Patrick and call him the big fat meanie at this point. Anyway, so Patrick tries to quote-unquote help him. So he puts SpongeBob's foot in his mouth for some reason, which SpongeBob kind of is like, Patrick, what are you doing? And then he's like, oh, fine, then I won't be your doctor. It's like, well, SpongeBob, you should have just let him run away. Because then Patrick ends up hammering the splinter in even further, and then putting trash on it to infect it. What a nice best friend you have there, SpongeBob. I think you should find someone else. Like, literally. Just, please, not Patrick. It's a shame, too, especially after seeing him as a doctor in Suds, because that episode was actually pretty funny, and Patrick wasn't really doing harmful things to SpongeBob. It didn't work, but they weren't harmful like they were in this one. If anything, Mr. Krabs is the best in this episode, because he actually ends up pulling the splinter out like it's nothing, and then ends up getting squirted by the remains. It's not a bad story, it's just such a disgusting mess, and Patrick ruins it. The Card. I don't think this one's quite as bad as the Splinter, but it's definitely close second. So there is a rare Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy card, and Patrick, of course, ends up getting it. SpongeBob looks through all these stacks, and of course the one stack he doesn't look in is the one that has apparently all of them in it, as we'll see at the end. So of course Patrick, being Patrick, ends up doing stupid things like letting himself being covered by mud or even getting wet and putting it in places you wouldn't think of, and using it as a key, or even to clean the grill, or heck, even as the tray for the Krabby Patties that he ends up cooking. The problem is that Patrick is well aware that he is doing this, and you can just see SpongeBob just like, I don't know what the word is, but like, get annoyed every time Patrick is using this card that he really likes as, like, normal day-to-day things. By the end, the card disintegrates, because Patrick was rough with it, and SpongeBob cries. I mean, I guess that's acceptable, but, I mean, it's annoying. Oh, but lo and behold, Patrick ended up having all the remaining cards. Which I guess was nice, because SpongeBob did get some at the end, but the rest of this episode is just yet again a pain to sit through. The only part I did like about this episode is where Patrick said, "You can't expect my normal brand of stupidity. I have to mix it up, keep you on your toes." Other than that, it's just another dumb Season 6 filler-friendly one-dimensional episode. You gotta love them at this point. Let's just get used to them at this point, because it's season 6. It's not gonna get any better. The Slumber Party. I feel like Pearl kind of works like Gary. Some episodes I don't mind her in, other episodes I really hate her in, and this is definitely one of them. It's not just her, I feel like I hate everybody in this episode. Like, there's not one person I like. Maybe SpongeBob, but that's it. So, Pearl's throwing a slumber party and kicks Mr. Krabs out of the house, basically. And Mr. Krabs doesn't want to leave, so he gets SpongeBob to spy on them, I guess. That's basically the whole episode, and it's just pointless. I don't like Pearl because she's a whiny little baby who doesn't get her way in this episode. I don't like her friends because they're about to pour boiling lava on SpongeBob. SpongeBob's just kind of there, and Mr. Krabs just kind of is annoying because he tries to break into the house all the time. This episode is just a boring mess where you gotta hate literally everybody. Grooming Gary. Speaking of Gary episodes, well, here we go. Here's your season 6 Gary episode. So SpongeBob's trying to make Gary the best so he can win a prize. That's literally the whole episode. And Gary's being stubborn and grumpy about it and won't let SpongeBob put anything on him. And he's just being a grump that day, I guess. And apparently towards the end of that episode, he ends up throwing a riot just because SpongeBob puts clothes on Gary. Why? This episode is almost as stupid as Gary takes a bath. It's just a pointless mess. It is better just because at least they're trying something, and SpongeBob doesn't seem to be quite as tortured in this episode, but man, it's definitely the second worst Gary episode. I don't like the whole part where he tries to stand up for from SpongeBob. I don't know what the words are, but it's like, what's the point? SpongeBob didn't do anything. It's not like he got puffy fluffy and then blamed everything that he did on Gary. You know, that's a way to stand up to SpongeBob. But this episode, SpongeBob didn't deserve it. He was just kind of there, and then Patrick ends up winning at the end. I guess that's deservable. It just boils down to another bad Gary episode, because Gary's stubborn and I don't like him in some episodes. Anyway, let's move on to number 1, which is Choir Boys. We are back to the dreaded season 6. I know, this will be the last one. Oh yeah, because it's the last episode we're talking about. This is what happens. Squidward tries to go to a men's choir. SpongeBob tries to stop him along the way. Squidward ties SpongeBob up, and of course, because everyone likes SpongeBob, he ends up somehow getting free by jellyfish. Squidward makes it to the men's choir, sings badly, SpongeBob comes, sings better, and the episode ends. This episode is just another one of those filler-friendly episodes. And on top of that, I mean, it's obvious it's another Squidward episode. Squidward torture, of course. There's just nothing in this episode. And if you're wanting me to rant about this episode, then I've already did. I've ranted about it in Boating Buddies, in Good Neighbors, in Cephalopod Lodge, Professor Squidward. I've already did. It's just the same old shtick. Squidward torture. Like I said before, like 5 times now at this point, it's the most stupidest stuff I've ever seen in SpongeBob. All Squidward wants to do is get to the men's choir, and of course, because Squidward is the punching bag, he sings bad. And SpongeBob is the one who sings good, because, you know, like I said, all episodes just have to end the same. SpongeBob wins and everyone else loses, unless if it's driven to tears. That's a different story. There's literally nothing I have to say about this episode. It's the same stuff we see in Cephalopod Lodge, Boating Buddies, Professor Squidward, Good Neighbors. It's the same stuff, and it's just stupid. The reason why I think this one's worse than Cephalopod Lodge is that SpongeBob doesn't seem to help Squidward at all in this episode. He'll let Squidward be stung by, like, a bunch of jellyfish. All he wants is for Squidward to hear his song. And as always, he's mainly the reason why Squidward gets tortured in this episode. The ending's bad too, because Squidward doesn't even get to sing. He just flips the book for SpongeBob. Honestly, there's just nothing else I really have to say. This episode is so boringly long as well. It's so filler. Like I said, Season 6 had a lot of filler in it. A lot of just slowly walking around, slowly doing this. This episode is definitely one of them. And, good lord, it is a train wreck. But like I said, I'm sure everyone can agree with these or any of the Squidward torture episodes. No one wants to see Squidward be tortured. Why? He didn't deserve it. It just doesn't seem fair, and especially since we get like so many of these episodes as well, it's not even funny. It's just more like a chore to watch at this point. And that's just basically sums up season 6 and a lot of these episodes. SpongeBob isn't about everybody anymore. It's just all about the kids, and all the one-dimensional filler stuff we get in season 6 just ruins the show. Like, yeah, sure, it does get a lot better as the seasons go on from here, but I mean, we had this train wreck season to jump through. And 4 and 5 are only a little better than this season as well. All 3 of these seasons were just pretty meh. Well, 4 was maybe tolerable, but 6 was garbage. That doesn't mean there's any good episodes in this season, which we'll talk about eventually, but there was definitely a lot of bad episodes in this one as well. There's just nothing else I really have to say. It's a bad episode for sure, and I can consider it the worst episode in seasons 4, 5, and 6. Whew, good lord. There's just so many bad episodes. More bad than good, I guess, so it's just so much to talk about. With all that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time when we talk about the good episodes in these seasons. Because like I said, there's a lot of bad ones, but that doesn't mean there's any good ones as well. And like I said, with that, I will see you next time. Bye!